Hi, everybody. Welcome back for another live stream. This is going to be a good one. This is one of my favorite Cold War era uh, nuclear preparedness movies. Hopefully, you guys are going to like it as much as I do. If you do, make sure you hit like. Make sure to subscribe, and so that you're getting notifications for all of the new videos. I'm going to keep doing this at least every Friday. Now that the advanced history class that I've been teaching is finished, and all the content there's been put up, I might start doing this more than once a week if there's enough interest. I've actually got my hands on a whole bunch of movies that I can do reaction videos to, and responses, and educational commentary. So hopefully, you guys are into it, and hopefully we can keep going with more of this type of reaction video with commentary. So today's video is actually a really good one. It's called Atomic Alert, and it's sometimes referred to as the elementary version. The original title of this film was Atomic Alert: School, Home, Street. And it was designed specifically to teach children what to do if there's a nuclear attack, if there's an atomic bomb that goes off. People in 1950 really started to worry about, we've got all of these little kids in school all day, every day. They don't know what to do, and so we've got to educate them. We've got to inform the little kids, the young people, the school-age children of the country what to do in case there is an atomic attack while they're at school. And so, interestingly enough, the Encyclopedia Britannica company got together and, through their film division, created this film to inform and educate young people as to what to do in the case of an atomic bomb. And actually, they got some really important people to help them do this. Enrico Fermi, who was basically the father of nuclear fission; Willard Libby, who's another famous scientist who was a Nobel Prize winner; Samuel Allison. They had a whole bunch of these people on as consulting experts, right? As experts in the field, to advise them as to what they should be telling children. And so ultimately, in May of 1951, they put this film out rather, to help kids to know what was going on. It shows us a lot of the same themes that we saw in some of our other videos. It shows us, the real concern that people have over the Cold War, over nuclear war, over how to survive an atomic bomb. And so, without any more introduction, let's start. Atomic Alert from May of 1951. So I'm going to jump up here into the top corner of the screen, and we're going to get moving. Encyclopedia Britannica Films. I don't know why I find that image creepy. The atom symbol inside of an eyeball with the pupil like completely and totally blown out. I don't know. I think it's creepy. I also want you to look and notice that this says elementary version. So this is specifically supposed to be for elementary school kids. Some of the ideas and the way that they talk about them, I'm not really sure they necessarily hit their target audience very well, because some of the ideas are at a pretty high level. And some of the vocabulary and language that they're using is also at an incredibly high level for what should be an elementary school versions. Now, I don't know, maybe ultimately elementary school in 1951 meant like junior high school. To me, this seems like it's more of a junior high school kind of a thing, but they're calling it elementary school version. So I'm not really sure. That seems a little strange to me. But again, you can see Encyclopedia Britannica Films, 1951. The Institute of Nuclear Studies at the University of Chicago, that was part of the Manhattan Project to actually develop the atomic bomb. So they had smart people working on this.
Clicking sounds that reveal the presence of radioactive rays. The instrument, a Geiger counter, is converting radioactivity into sounds we can hear. This radioactivity is coming from a small piece of radioactive material inside this plastic cylinder.
Geiger counters are really cool if you haven't ever gotten to play with one before. It's got basically a long piece of wire inside of that, and essentially it works like a microphone. As the radiation comes whizzing through the universe, it hits that wire basically inside of that Geiger counter, and it sends an electrical signal through, which then is converted into both a dial indication of how much radiation is there, and also a click. So you can hear that clicking when it comes to Geiger counters in real life. But Ultimately, Geiger counters are for very sensitive measurements. A lot of times you play with these things in science class, things like that. He's got a little container there, a little cylinder that's got some kind of atomic or nuclear radioactive substance in it. And again, you can kind of get closer and further away, and of course, it changes as a result of the square of the distance between what you're measuring and what's giving off the radiation. So pretty cool that even kids in the 1950s would have had access to a Geiger counter. Cool.
The small amount of radioactivity coming from the cylinder is harmless. The luminous dial on this watch also gives off radioactive rays, which we hear on the Geiger counter.
For anybody that remembers, there's a really famous play and also a movie called Radium Girls, because of course watches and wristwatches in particular have had luminous paint on them since really World War II, and the problem became that a lot of the people who were painting with that luminous paint, with that radioactive paint, a lot of times they would dip it into their tongue or under their lips, and of course they got horrifically poisoned by exposure to that amount of radiation. But that's something that was very common, where it was actually a radioactive substance painted onto the surface of your wristwatch, so that at night it would glow, and then you could actually read your watch in the middle of the night.
Even when there's no radioactive material near, the Geiger counter continues to click. This is caused by cosmic radiation that continually bombards us from outer space. But we don't get enough cosmic radiation to harm us. Today, atomic scientists produce radioactivity in large amounts. Radioactivity and radioactive materials have many peacetime uses.
You'll notice this one compared to You Can Beat the A-Bomb. At least now they're wearing gloves and like jumpsuits and stuff. They're not carrying around nuclear radioactive material with their hands.
We know, too, that they can be used harmfully, as in atomic bombs. The chance of your being hurt by an atomic bomb is slight. But since there is a chance, you must know how to protect yourself.
That's good. At least they come right out and tell you, the chance of you being hurt by an atomic bomb is very slight, right? But even though it's very small chance that you'll be hurt by an atomic bomb, you've got to know what to do just in case that small chance pays off. Like, that's actually a relatively, good way of approaching this thing. And it's also, it's reassuring, I think, to kids. But it also shows us this kind of Cold War mindset, right? Where people are concerned. The government has to tell them something. This is essentially propaganda to tell people, to relax and to calm down. But again, I think that this one really does a much better job than You Can Beat the A-Bomb of trying to assuage people's fears and kind of calm them down in a responsible way. And again, that's really actually nice to see.
To protect yourself, you have to know what the bomb does. Besides blast, there's radioactivity and heat. Can we protect ourselves from these?
So again, the three ways that all atomic bombs work, and two of those ways are the same way any bomb works. You've got blast, which is pressure. You've got heat, which is the scorching effect of temperature change, and then you've got radiation, which is the only one you get out of a nuclear bomb that's different than a conventional bomb. But otherwise, that's the three ways that all of them work. This example here is actually a really good one, with the exception that, and you'll see it here in a minute, it shows the effect. If you're inside of your house and if you're down in the basement and if you've got yourself protected, you can keep yourself safe with something that they kind of leave out that we'll see.
These children are protected. Concrete walls help stop radioactivity.
Here comes the radioactivity. The radiation is coming through the house and then down into the basement. And the little boy and the little girl that are down there in the bottom, in the corner of the basement are safe. But what they don't mention is, what if you're on the other side of the basement? If you're on the other side of the basement, that radiation is going to hit you and you're going to be dead. So one of the things you better keep in mind is, what potential targets are out there that the Russians might be aiming at, so that you have to be on that side of your basement to keep that radiation from hitting you, right? It's something that, they're at least subtly suggesting to you that you better know which side of your basement to be on, so that, you have to think about, well, from my house, the closest military base or the closest big city is this direction. So since that's most likely where the Russians are going to bomb or the Soviets are going to bomb, I better be on that side of my basement. So again, it's something which it's a good thing to tell people, right? Being in the basement's a good thing, but it still kind of leaves open this possibility of, but you better be worried about knowing where in your basement to be.
Any wall stops the heat. The heat scorches the house, but does not harm the children. Any solid gives some protection. The thicker it is, the better. We have the national defenses to intercept an enemy, and we all form a team.
That's actually a hydrogen bomb that they set off in the South Pacific in a place called Bikini Atoll. They set it off underwater and it created a huge tidal wave, but it also created a gigantic amount of steam. You can see the little battleships underneath there. Those are full-size battleships, and they're getting thrown around like a cork in a bathtub. Like, that's how big hydrogen bombs are, and that's really one of the reasons why in the 1950s people got so incredibly panicked about atomic annihilation, is because hydrogen bombs were massively, massively, massively powerful. And actually, I just found some new videos that we're going to do later on in this, in the later spring and early summertime, which is kind of along the same lines, and it talks about hydrogen bombs in particular, and it shows you kind of the impact of those hydrogen bombs. But that's actually a really interesting shot that they've got, that they were releasing even in 1951, because it's very early into the hydrogen bomb age.
To help each other through emergencies. You are on that team. So is your family, each member of it. And in your community,
I want to know if this is supposed to be, right, because they're telling kids, right, you're on a team and you got to know what your job is on the team. And that, again, really, really, really good information here coming out. But what I want to know is this depiction supposed to be before or after the atomic bomb's gone off? Because if you'll notice, nobody's got a face. And that's kind of horrifying. Like, what are they trying to tell people? Like, after the bomb goes off, you're not going to have a face, right? But you're going to be on a team and you got to do your job. So again, there's you, and then there's your family, and everybody's got a job, and now we've got the community around us, and they all have jobs too. Now, watch for the sexism.
Every doctor, fireman, every policeman, and nurse,
Wait a minute, how come the doctors and the firemen are men, and how come the nurse is a woman? That's totally sexist, except in the 50s it was probably true.
An operator.
Lineman, operator, really important. It's something that people overlook big time, is this concept of communication. It's something that really people have kind of forgotten about since 9/11. In 9/11, people found out about how important communication was when the communications lines went down in New York. Right? But especially in an emergency like this, you're going to find communication to be one of the most important things, both for communicating with other people and also to allow the government to communicate with people and to let them know what to do to stay safe. So linemen, those guys that climb up the poles and fix your electrical power and fix the phone lines and stuff like that. Also the operators, who of course in the old days were manually plugging in one phone to another. Like, really, really important stuff.
Civil defense worker. In fact, every community employee is ready to help you if you need it. So your community is prepared for emergencies and ready to help other communities. We have state and national headquarters for civil defense. And your city has a civil defense corps.
So again, this kind of federalism of the layering of different governments that are working together collaboratively to try to keep everybody safe, and how we're layering this protection on top of each other. Again, I think that does work relatively well. I think they're doing a relatively good job of showing people, like, this is all the stuff we're trying to do to keep you safe. So that's good.
We have a warning system and a system of defense.
We only have 8 ships, though, so that might not be the best thing.
Yes, we have the equipment and the people for an effective team. But, like any team, it can win only when everyone knows his job and does it well. What is your job?
So here we are, suburbia in the 50s, right? People have moved out of the cities. We've seen that suburbanization, what they sometimes refer to as white flight. We're living, we're in a nice suburban community here. The kids are walking home from school, or maybe to school. I don't know. It looks like it's late in the day. The shadows are kind of long. So we'll say they're walking home from school, without warning, or at least without much warning, right? They're going on, this could happen at any time, right? They're going on with their everyday normal activities, and then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, here we go.
What if a warning siren sounds? What should you do?
Warning siren. Now look, most of them react immediately, which is good, right? You should always have a plan. You should always be able to execute that plan really quickly. This is not bad advice, but man, they move quick. As soon as that siren goes off, they hightail it and they start doing their job. Except for the 2 goofy guys.
Don't try to make it home unless home is the nearest place to go.
Okay, now we're down to 1 goofy guy who keeps walking around in a circle in the middle of the street. Like, what is he doing? Where's he going? Do something. Don't stand in the middle of the street.
Don't hesitate. Find cover.
The girl's running up the stairs and she's yelling at him like, you gotta go, it's an atomic bomb, you better hurry up. He's all dorked out in the middle of the street. Even the dog knows what to do. The dog's running for home and the kid's standing there in the middle of the street going, where do I go?
Everyone is in on this. Strangers will understand.
Now here's a piece of advice that I'm a little concerned about. Everyone's in on this, right? We're all part of a team. Strangers will understand, so just run to any house that you're close to. I know I'm looking at this through 21st century eyes, but oh my goodness, is that not a great piece of advice to just go to anybody's house who's around there, because strangers will understand and everybody will take care of you. Boy, that makes my 21st century stomach kind of tighten a lot. But again, it's 1951. I mean, I understand this is a different time and a different place, but ooh, don't go to random people's houses. That's weird.
Finding shelter quickly may save your life. If you can't get into a house, get behind a wall or a steep embankment on the side away from the city.
Right, so they're telling you if you can't get inside of a building, then at least get in a ditch or get on the side of a hill and make sure that you're on the opposite side from the closest city, because it's probably the city that's getting nuked. And if you're on the other side, right, so you got a hill and you're laying down here, at least you've got a lot of dirt, a lot of earth to try to absorb those gamma rays so that you're as safe as possible. Again, not a horrible suggestion.
Civil defense teams will go into action immediately.
Here they're starting to break down the whole safety thing, though. Like, if this is the local town's response, we've got 4 guys and 1 fire extinguisher. Maybe not the most reassuring thing ever.
You're home. You've work to do.
Hi, Susie. Everything's fine upstairs. How you doing here?
Okay, I guess.
That's good.
There's this constant obsession with closing blinds and drawing drapes. Again, thinking back to what Hiroshima and Nagasaki looked like, I don't know why they're so obsessed with the darn drapes. Like, it doesn't matter. Why are you so obsessed with this?
We repeat, cover windows to protect against the possibility of broken glass, heat, and radioactivity. Turn off fires. If you are home and are not assigned to civil defense duties, go to your prepared shelter.
Another question that intrigues me is, why were all of the valves on the stove before the radio told him to turn them off? Like, those shouldn't have been on. Maybe he's just checking. We'll give him the benefit of the doubt. Although we'll see later that this guy really doesn't deserve the benefit of the doubt. He's kind of a goof.
Those who are in shopping centers, go to prepared
Whoa,
shelters
fire in the kitchen's
immediately.
out. Now we'll go down the
In
basement.
this practice alert, we are assuming that the attack will come on the waterfront area.
See, it's just practice. All this rushing around for nothing.
Now, there's just where you're wrong. We need this practice. Now, come on, let's do our job.
Practice is something that actually happened. I can remember being a little kid in the 80s, and in 1986, when I was in kindergarten, we actually did, nuclear bomb drills when we got down underneath our desks and covered our faces up and, got prepared for that kind of stuff. I remember doing it in 86 and 87, both. So I know that's really late in the Cold War, but I have a distinct specific memory of doing that in 2 of my elementary school buildings. So again, it's something that they just wanted to try to ingrain into people so that if kids went through this experience, if ever, they could at least default to, okay, we know what to do. And again, everybody kind of knows that, right? We do fire drills and tornado drills and everybody kind of goes through the motions, but the idea is, in an extreme emergency, you will always resort back to the lowest level that you have mastered in terms of skill. So that's why we practice it so much that you can do it in your sleep, is because that's what you're going to do when it comes time, when the stuff hits the fan, that's what you're going to do. So we want you to make sure that you at least have mastered the basic skills to keep yourself alive. So they're going through the practice just like you should go through the practice. Really good idea.
It's good thinking. We all need practice. Here's a clean, well-prepared shelter in the basement. Ted and Sue have a battery radio, and they have soda ash and stirrup pump fire extinguishers. They have other emergency supplies, too. A flashlight, a well-equipped first aid kit, with plenty of bandages, tape, and scissors.
Looks like the only thing that Sue and whatever his name is, Bob, Bill, whatever, it looks like the only thing that they don't have that would really help them in surviving an atomic bomb is parents. Where the heck are these kids' parents?
a Red Cross first aid book, a few cans of food, a good supply of water, blankets, and an electric lantern in reserve.
You know, Susie, this stuff would come in handy on a camping trip.
And again, all of these things are things that I hope everybody's got in their house someplace for any disaster, right? You get a tornado come through, the power just goes out, whatever. It's good to have this stuff. So again, this isn't bad advice. This isn't a bad suggestion that the government's making to people. It's just the way they're doing it is a little strange.
I'd a lot rather be on a camping trip. Say, what would we do if we didn't have a basement?
At school, they told us we should be away from windows and behind double walls. You know, like an inside hall.
Ted's right. If you live in an apartment house, you can't all go to the basement. Head for a shelter area. If none is marked for you, find cover away from windows.
That's something that you used to see a lot more, where they would have designated shelter areas. And actually the local governments were responsible for not only maintaining these, but also stocking them and supplying them with bandages and food and all kinds of stuff. I remember back in the 80s when I was a kid, we used to see that certain buildings around town, and even anymore, if you find old enough buildings, you'll see it, they would have that radioactive symbol on it, and that was the indicator that that was a nuclear fallout or a bomb shelter where you could go and they would have civil defense supplies there waiting for you so that you could be safe in the event of some kind of catastrophic incident like this.
In a hallway if possible. Wait for the all clear. Be calm. If you're on the playground, run for shelter. If you're in the schoolyard, get into the building.
Those kids booked
quickly,
it.
but in good order. Inside, go to the shelter area you've been assigned. Take your place on the floor. Here's one good way to protect your eyes and neck in case of a bombing.
Now, this one I don't know about. Take your coat with you and cover your face and your head with it. Like, did the Japanese not have coats? Is that why Hiroshima and Nagasaki was so devastating? I'm not sure about that. I'm not really sure what the coat thing's supposed to do. The one thing that occurs to me is if the windows break and there's glass flying around, that would help prevent your face and your eyes from getting all cut up. But otherwise, it seems like, maybe not.
Wait for the all clear. So far, you've been watching a practice drill. But what if there is a bombing that comes without warning? What is your job then? Find cover immediately. Don't.
Okay, if you get bombed without warning, you're standing out in the opening, the only thing that's going to be left of you is that little puff of ash and smoke that comes out. Remember Hiroshima, right? You saw people's shadows being cast right before their bodies were vaporized. Like, if you're caught out in the open in a nuclear attack, you're done. If you see the flash, now there's an old rule, literally rule of thumb, that says that if you're outside and you see a nuclear detonation, you hold your thumb up all the way out from your shoulder, right? So you stick your arm out straight and you hold your thumb up. If the mushroom cloud is bigger than your thumb, you're too close and you're getting radioactively, poisoned. If the mushroom cloud is smaller than your thumb while it's being held out at, arm's length like that, then you're within a range of safety. So that was always, the rule during the Cold War is if you stick your thumb out and the mushroom cloud's bigger than that, you're in the danger range.
Look at the flash. Stretch out. In about 1 minute, the immediate danger is past.
1 minute. I still don't know where they get that. In about 1 minute, the immediate danger is past. It depends on how far away you are. That pressure wave could still be moving towards you. The immediate effect of gamma radiation is pretty much past, other than the nuclear fallout, but that's going to take a little while. So yes, the radiation danger is past, but the pressure and the fire could still be on their way to you. So this whole 1 minute thing, I'm not sure exactly where they think they're getting that from.
Head for safer cover. Another bomb may fall. Get indoors if you can. Shed your outer garments.
Shred your outer garments. I cannot believe that someone in 1951 told people to start stripping off your clothes in public, but there it is.
They may have radioactive particles on them. If you're home, take shelter. And stay down for about 1 minute.
Okay, that may be my most favorite thing ever. Dude's sitting on the couch reading a book. Atomic bomb goes off like an idiot. He throws the book up and rolls off the couch. That's amazing.
By then, the danger from radioactivity, heat, and blast have passed. Protect your eyes and neck.
Let's get things shut up.
Sue found shelter under her bed.
Bomb's already gone off. What's she closing the drapes and blinds for? Again, this obsession that people in the 50s had with drapes and blinds for an atomic bomb, I don't get it.
Dad, let's get the battery set.
Radio's dead. That's not good. That can happen, though. It's part of...
When the house struck,
That's called an EMP, an electromagnetic pulse. Like the radiation flowing through the atmosphere is actually so great that it can cause circuits to overload even if they're not plugged into anything. So that's actually a legitimate thing. And they actually started finding out about that in the middle of the 1950s, where that was actually a real possibility. The way they found out about it is they set off an atomic bomb way up in the atmosphere out in the Pacific Ocean, and it actually blacked out all Hawaii. And it wasn't really until that they understood the connection between electromagnetic pulse and the detonation of an atomic bomb. But that is actually a legitimate thing that can happen.
off, that battery radio is essential. Keep tuned in.
The airburst of 3:01 p.m. was zeroed on Union Station. Heavy damage extends from about 14th Street north to as far south as the waterfront.
You know, we're lucky.
To western.
That blast was miles.
Stay under cover unless you have civil defense to... I've just been handed a bulletin. There's been an underwater burst at the waterfront.
So they got double nuked, right? There's an air burst, which means the bomb was set off to explode in the air. That's okay, right? That's, I mean, if an atomic bomb's going off, about as safe as you can get. Because, again, a lot of the radiation does go up in the air. So as long as you're relatively close, you're probably not going to get fallout. If you didn't die in the blast, you're probably going to be okay. Water bursts, though, those are scary because that fog and that mist is all highly radioactive. It carries those radioactive isotopes with it, and it just settles all over everything. And it's a really, really, really dangerous sort of thing. So this town got double nuked. Not good.
Water thrown up by the bomb is falling as mist and rain, and it is radioactive. Avoid radioactive mist and
What
rain.
does he mean
which
by
the winds are blowing south from the river.
Love the little girl, Sue. What does he mean by radioactive? Like, wow. Whoever coached her to say it that way was awesome.
According to what Dad said, the radioactivity gets into the mist and rain. And if the mist or rain gets on you, it's apt to make you very sick.
Sue looks so completely unimpressed with her brother. Like, that is really, they have real sibling chemistry there.
What'd you do about it?
I'd scrub thoroughly with a detergent and water.
Detergent and water. I don't know where that comes from either. Like, if you get some radioactivity on you, you can wash it off with soap and water. Probably not.
Detergent?
It's something like Mom uses when she washes dishes and clothes.
How come Dad doesn't ever wash dishes and clothes? How come it's always Mom's job? This must be the 50s.
Don't drink tap water. It may be contaminated.
Ted and Sue are waiting for the all clear.
I think Ted and Sue dipped into the moonshine, too.
I'll see who it is.
Okay. If there's a big enough catastrophe and someone comes and knocks on your door, the last thing you want to do is answer it, right? Again, this is the 50s. I know it's another time, it's another place, but the last thing to do is to answer the door after a disaster like this, because you don't know who's coming to the door. You don't know. Home invasions must not have been a thing.
It's your block warden, Mr. Carlson.
Oh, Mr. Carlson. Mr. Carlson is the local block warden, so essentially think about this almost like the neighborhood watch, except organized by the civil defense community, so that people were in charge and they could check on their neighbors, and then they could report back to their local town air marshal, and then everybody was kind of accounted for so that they could keep track of, you know, who's where and what, and how many casualties and how much damage and all that kind of stuff. So this is a legit thing. They really did have provisions laid out for this to really happen.
Hello, Ted. Hello. Ted, this is Mr. Franklin, our radiological monitor. He's here to check for any radioactivity.
So here we see the meter man, right? The meter man was super, super important because they had ion chambers that they would carry around to detect how much radiation was actually lingering around in different parts of town, and then they were responsible for actually writing all that down, and so that we could put it all together and make a map of where is the highest concentration of radiation. Where are people, you know, good to go? Where are people not so good to go? This is all legit stuff. And again, what he's carrying around there is an ion chamber, which is designed to detect large amounts of radioactivity.
I saw your mother down the shopping center. She's fine.
I love it. I saw your mother down at the shopping center. She's fine. Probably she's dead, but that's okay.
Well, there's no damage here.
No, it's been very good here.
I like how awkward these two are together. Like, is there something going on
Say,
with
have you
them?
seen my dad lately?
He's down at headquarters, and boy, he's really busy.
Yeah?
Well, there's no radio
Oh, if you see my dad, yeah, he's at headquarters and he's really busy. Oh, yeah. And that's it. That's all he has about his dad.
activity here.
Say, Mr. Franklin, is that a pen on your coat there?
Oh, no, that's a dosimeter.
A dosimeter? What's a dosimeter?
Well, it measures the amount of radio.
I like how Mr. Franklin forgets for a minute what the dosimeter does, right? Now, this is really important, and actually, this is still a real thing that anybody that works around radiation and nuclear materials does, is they always wear something. Usually it's a little badge or a little card or something, so that if they're exposed to radiation, it's almost like a piece of film. That film will get exposed to the radiation, and then they can tell whether or not, they could have been injured on the job. And so, of course, if you're a meter man, the likelihood that you're going to be exposed to radiation is really, really high. So those guys are going to carry around with them dosimeters that are going to measure the dose of radiation that they've been exposed to.
Activity that I've been exposed to. But this is the meter that I used to check with.
Hey, Mr. Carlson, is there anything I can do outside to help?
No, Ted, everything is under control. You just stay here till the all-clear signal is given. You've done a good job.
Thank you, Mr. Carlson.
Bye, Sue.
Bye.
I like how this guy is the warmest and most inviting person that the block could find to be the local block warden. Like, oh my goodness, he seems like he's one step above a gangster.
A good job. That's what everyone must do to be safe.
Oh,
Doing a
again,
good
no
job
faces.
means simply following the rules in an alert or an attack, and waiting until all is clear again.
It's even funny the second time.
In this early and troubled stage of the atomic age, our very lives may depend on always being alert.
So there we go. There's Atomic Alert from 1951. Produced by Encyclopedia Britannica. I would say it's a little bit better than You Can Beat the A-Bomb, because of course they've got more information in the time since the two videos came out, or the two films were released. More information was available. People had better recommendations. People had a better idea of what to do and how to handle this particular situation. But still, it comes off where it's just the little quirks of the film are just so much fun to me. I love that movie. I hope you guys enjoyed it too. I hope you learned something about Cold War mindset and what people were thinking about in the Cold War and how they thought in the Cold War. Coming up here, I'm developing more video projects to do for these live streams, and again, I might start doing these more than once a week. But so far, I've got some old newsreels from the 1920s. Now they're silent, which is actually kind of an interesting thing. I haven't done a silent film before, but we'll see if we're going to do a silent film next time. I think next week, at least, we're going to do a newsreel from 1921, which has lots and lots of cool stuff on it. It's kind of a mixed bag of stuff. There's not a huge connection to make between all those things. It's just kind of a newsreel and an update, so I can fill you guys in on some kind of background information and historical, details that are just really interesting from this old archival footage and this old public domain stock footage. So hopefully you guys will be into that, and I hope to see you back here next week. Like, share, subscribe, leave comments below once the video posts. I appreciate everybody who is here for the live stream, and stay healthy and stay safe, everybody. I will see you guys